that.
All right, guys. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MMA Island podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keela McNamara and Hunter Boss. We have a stacked podcast ahead of us today.
I'm Jack Kennedy, and they hit a lot harder, in my opinion, too.
What is up, everybody? My name is Keelan McNamara, and everyone's got a plan until they get hit with my views.
I am Hunter Boss. He just wanted to go to the distance by the looks of it, but he couldn't even do that.
And this is the MMA Island podcast.
UFC 261 was amazing. One of the best cards I've seen in a long time. A lot of news coming off of that, branching off of that, some great fan questions. Let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to start off with the horrible news and shocking to see Chris Weidman himself against Uriah Hall. He suffered the injury that Anderson Silva suffered against himself back, what I think Hunter and I were just talking about, like 9 years ago, where his shin basically split in half. Just a horrible injuries. Our thought and prayers go out to Chris Weidman. And starting with Keelan, starting with Hunter, what do you make of this unfortunate injury from Chris Weidman?
Yeah, it's just terrible. You know, Chris Weidman's been on the come up lately. My thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. It's just a terrible thing that happened. It's so crazy that it happened to him because,
Yes.
as Jack was saying, we were just talking about this. It happened, I think, 8 years ago. I think 2013. But yeah, it's insane what happened. I mean, it was literally the first kick/punch thrown in the entire fight, and breaks it immediately. Like it was a crazy way to start off the the main card, but it's just terrible what happened.
Yeah, dude. First of all, my deepest prayers and sympathies to the Weidman family. Chris is such a good guy. He really is. Stellar champion, just one of the best fighters we've ever seen in the middleweight division. Really, really disappointed, not just on that level, but many levels. As everybody knows, this was a fight I was really looking forward to. Uriah Hall, albeit it only lasted 17 seconds, he looked good. He came in really, really good shape as he always is, and he looked smooth. Even his initial movement, his boxing head movement, he looked very, very good. He looked sharp, and so did Weidman as well. And as Hunter said there now, the first kick or punch that was thrown, just an awful, awful injury. When you hear that sickening crack, that's when you know something's wrong. I mean, we all said it in our group chat. The second we heard that leg being thrown, it was over. And again, I know all of our viewers have probably seen this, but a very strong graphic warning for you if you do go back and watch that. It's when Weidman goes to stand on his right leg, and I can't even. It's horrible. It really, really is. He goes to stand on the leg, and that's when it gives out. And massive props to Uriah Hall for how he handled himself too. A complete gentleman, a complete class act as a martial artist. And I'll end my perspective on this by saying this. As you guys know, none of us really pay much attention to social media trolls and so on because they're trolls, they live on negativity. But complete shame on you, anybody who said this was karma to Chris Weidman. Don't ever wish an injury on anybody like that. These guys literally put their lives on the line and their livelihoods every time they step into the octagon. And we were given a very sad reminder of that Saturday night. So shame on you if you did mock him. For the very large majority of those who didn't, do give Chris Weidman your prayers and your thoughts, because we all are as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll start there. Obviously, my deepest thoughts and prayers to Chris Weidman and his family. It's horrible. It's the one part, like, I keep feeling my shins and everything because I just can't, like, I hardly can walk after watching that. It's just so hard to see and process in a fight. And especially to happen to him as well is what's also shocking. It's crazy. I didn't believe it when we were watching our group chat. We were freaking out like almost immediately as it happened. We must have all had a very similar feed, which I'm glad about. I didn't want to be texting before each other. We
Yeah,
must
at
have had a
4
similar
a.m.
feed. Yeah. So we were all freaking out, and it's terrible. It was, in my opinion, even worse than the Anderson Silva one because Anderson Silva realized that it had snapped in half and went to the ground immediately, didn't take extra punishment. Chris Weidman didn't realize it and stepped on it, and it went sideways. It's chilling to think about. And again, obviously, I don't recommend to go and watch that because it is really sad and horrifying to see. It's just it's so disappointing. And Keelan, I'm glad you addressed anybody that would be saying something negative about it, like he had it coming. This injury is not on Uriah Hall. That the injury against Anderson Silva was not on Chris Weidman. It's a leg check. I mean, you're going to have to check a leg kick, and it's just unfortunate the way that connects. And if you're older in your career, usually you're more susceptible to that. It's just you're doing your job. Both of them are doing their job, and it unfortunately happened. I mean, we see good leg checks all the time in the UFC. It's just those two examples are rare examples of how devastating checking a leg kick at full speed is. It's just a part of the game. So it's not on Uriah Hall that he broke Chris Weidman's leg. It's not on Chris Weidman that he broke Anderson Silva's leg. So anyone saying that Chris Weidman had it coming, that's just an ignorant statement, because it's not like Chris Weidman was going out there to break Anderson Silva's leg. It's unfortunate. And again, Uriah Hall is a fantastic human. I feel bad for him as well, because I know he does not process hurting opponents very well, even if he knocks him out. Obviously, we saw that on The Ultimate Fighter and everything. He's a very kind-hearted human being. So to see him sitting there and just being like, oh, I can't believe that happened. The way he handled it was perfect. I just hope for him mentally he can go in there and fight to his fullest ability the next time he does go out there and fight, and not think that he'll hurt another guy. Like Chris Weidman. And again, it's just a freak accident. No one wanted it to happen. It just happened, and that's just part of the sport. We got to see some of the most beautiful moments in the sport last Saturday, but we also got to see the absolute worst of the sport as well, which is what we saw with Chris Weidman. So obviously, all of us agree. Thoughts and prayers go out to Chris Weidman. Hope he gets better. That's the overall message of this situation. Let's go ahead and move on to the good stuff now. UFC 261 was amazing. The title fights, all of them lived up. Valentina Shevchenko put on a dominant performance over Jessica Andrade. Hunter, starting with you. How did you make of this fight?
Oh, this fight was just as I thought it would go, honestly. I mean, I know Jessica Andrade is a fantastic fighter, and she brought in something different that we thought she would bring in something different for the bullet to see. But as we've seen with Valentina Shevchenko in the past, she is just such a dominant fighter and such a dominant champion. And she truly is the second, if not the first, pound for pound woman's best in the world right now. I feel like the only fight we could see that could stand even a challenge for Shevchenko could be Amanda Nunes, the trilogy fight. But as Dana has said in the post-fight interviews and plenty of other occasions, these are two separate legacies, and they're going to continue in each weight division and just be dominant. But as we've seen in the past, there's these new fighters that are coming up and they're becoming good enough to challenge the champion. And I just hope there's even levels of competition for Shevchenko to get better. We see her ground game is amazing. We saw her in a mounted crucifix. We don't see that very often, especially in the women's division. Like I get flashbacks from Khabib when we see this. Yeah. It was beautiful how she did it. And every time she had a takedown, the judo, we just see so many different types of mixed martial arts. She is truly a mixed martial artist and one of the best in the world. And I can't wait to see her next in the octagon.
I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this. I think Valentina Shevchenko might be the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC today, man or woman, any division. Yeah. What a fighting clinic on Saturday night. And it's actually funny, me and Jack both predicted for once the right round in which the fight would be finished. I mean, she goes in against arguably her toughest test apart from Valentina, a mightily strong wrestler in Jessica Andrade. And what does she go and do against a wrestler? 5 takedowns in 1 round. She out-wrestles wrestlers. She outstrikes strikers. She'd probably out-jiu-jitsu a jiu-jitsu fighter if she had the chance. When have we ever seen someone fight someone else's game and beat them like this? She is so good. And I'll actually tell you when I knew she was going to win this fight, the first 20 seconds of the first round. And the reason I say that is this isn't upon reflection. This is just how I was calling it the second I saw it. If you note the first 20 seconds of that round, how many 1-2 combos does Shevchenko land immediately? A good 3 or 4 on Andrade. She immediately sets the range and she sets the pace, and Andrade is dancing to Shevchenko's tune for as long as that fight lasts. And that's the sign of a cerebral champion like Valentina Shevchenko. as Hunter says, how many mounted crucifixes do you see in any of the women's divisions? You don't. And Valentina it was almost like she was toying with Andrade against the cage. I kept thinking when they were in the clinch, is Valentina going to use her Muay Thai to finish this? Those elbows and those knees. Nope, she drags her to the ground, she slams her with that judo, gets the mounted crucifix, and just beats her up, really. And this is no slight in Jessica Andrade because she is a fantastic fighter. But what this fight tells us is the different universe of Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes are the queens of. That's what I said in the group chat after that fight, and that is still my perspective. Valentina Shevchenko, you are number one, and you're going to be number one until you don't want to be.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said. I love what you said too. I think she is the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC, man or woman, right now. She just is incredible. Anywhere it goes, she's dominating. She could have knocked Andrade out in the first round. Honestly, watching that fight from the first 20 seconds, like you said, she could have finished her on the feet in the first round. But no, Valentina Shevchenko says that's boring. Let's go out wrestle the wrestler. Let's set the women's flyweight record for takedowns in a fight. Let's go ahead and do that against a wrestler. I knew that the fight was almost done whenever Andrade got back to her feet and went to do her vintage slam throw on Valentina Shevchenko, and Shevchenko didn't budge. That's when I knew the fight was completely over. Because how demoralizing is that? You've been dominated the entire fight, the only position that you possibly have, and Valentina Shevchenko just completely neutralizes it, then twists you and takes you down. Oh, it was beautiful. The fight was definitely mercifully stopped. I don't think anybody's complaining about the stoppage because it wasn't even close. I mean, she wasn't like close to being knocked out or anything, but those elbows were landing over and over again. And you also have to consider how the fight was going as well. That first and second round, I could argue, were 10-8s, the way judges have been scoring 10-8s recently. I would argue those are 10-8s, and especially the second round with what she was doing. There was no way Andrade, even if she got back up, there's no way she was getting back into that fight. Valentina Shevchenko is on another level right now. She's on another planet from any other flyweight right now. She's just on another level. It's just so fun to witness every single time she fights. Just like Amanda Nunes, you have to watch those fights because you're watching one of the best to ever do it go out there and perform every single time. It's amazing. And she just does it every single time. You said she outstrikes strikers. Now she's out grappled a wrestler. And she did out jujitsu Jennifer Maya the last time she fought. She fought her game as well. I forgot about that. See, she's bored now. She's so good. She's bored. She wants to just go in there and do whatever her opponents think they're good at and beat them at that. That is when you have one of the greatest to ever do it. And if Amanda Nunes didn't exist, she would be the greatest to ever do it. It's just crazy to see that we have another one that's just as good as she is. So it's amazing to watch, and just another great performance for Valentina Shevchenko. I loved it.
Yeah. And we take a look at people who might possibly be able to beat her. We only talk about champions. Let's be honest here. Like maybe Amanda Nunes again, or maybe even if the strawweight champion Rose Namajunas wants to move up and maybe take her on, or maybe even Zhang Weili. I could see Zhang Weili putting up a pretty good fight against her. But still, they're only champions that we talk about when we think of people who could beat Valentina Shevchenko, and that's why she is such a great fighter and such a great champion currently.
I'd argue the first round was actually 10-7.
Yeah. I mean, it was dominant.
I'm perfectly serious. I would. Yeah. 5 takedowns in a round. The last time I remember that number of takedowns in a round was probably Khabib against Abel Trujillo.
Yeah.
That's how far back you have to go. So, I mean, if you're pulling out 10-7s against a former champion, then we really are only talking about a very select caliber of champions. And this isn't even necessarily champions that would beat her. We're just looking for a competitive fight at this point. Yeah. How good is Valentina Shevchenko?
Yeah, and again, Jessica Andrade is a phenomenal fighter. She is game against anybody in the world. And we've seen the fights that she's been able to put up with some of the best in the world, even at championships at strawweight. But Valentina Shevchenko is just that good, like you guys were saying. It's not even about who could beat her; it's about who could put up a competitive fight against her. And I would have said, Hunter, you brought it up, and we'll transition to it. I would have said Zhang Weili if she beat Rose Namajunas. I'd say that's the fight to make because she looked dominant. She looked so tough. But that was a shocking result. Rose Namajunas upset Zhang Weili with a head kick knockout in the first round, minute into it. Amazing moment inside the octagon. Hunter, what'd you make of this amazing win by Rose?
this was history right here. No woman has ever recaptured the belt before. So to see this live and in such a manner like this against such a fantastic fighter and champion was truly special. And the post fight interview, we had Joe Rogan in tears. We saw Rose Namajunas in tears. It was such a special moment to see, and I couldn't even be disappointed. Like I'm like, oh, I guess I got the prediction wrong, but this was a fantastic moment. I love Rose Namajunas. She's such a entertaining fighter to see. So when she goes in and head kick knocks out Zhang Wei Li, I can be one to say that no one saw this coming. At least it was truly crazy to see this happen, and I just can't wait to see what's next for her. Is she going to be able to stay careful and composed as champion, or will she lose the belt in a rematch with Zhang Wei Li? Because Dana White has hinted that this rematch will probably be the next fight for the strawweight champion.
Man, what a result. Absolutely incredible. It is not a fight card unless Pat Barry is saying something motivational. That's how you know what's going on. And once again, a man I have talked about so many times over the last few months, Trevor Whitman. I would argue the best coach in mixed martial arts at the moment.
You have to.
Look at the influence this man is having. Rose Namajunas, take a bow. I mean, I know she already did, but take another bow because this was just sensational. You know, Zhang Weili is such a good fighter. She's been a fantastic champion, and I am still a big fan of her. I predicted her to win. I thought she would catch Namajunas with one of those stupidly powerful shots and flatten her. That's not what happened. You know, Rose Namajunas went in. She looked smooth from the opening bell. Her boxing was on point. She looked comfortable again. She probably looked the best I've seen since the first Joanna fight. And, you know, even in that first fight, we saw what Rose did and how good she was with that smooth, orthodox boxing, taking her time, picking her shots. And that's exactly what she did again. She has the blueprint for her own success. Like Hunter just said, now it's a matter of her keeping composed and following her own blueprint for whoever she fights. You know, this is one of the greatest women's knockouts I've ever seen, and I throw it into the men's as well because I did not see that coming for a split second. You know, she's fighting in that orthodox stance, and I'm thinking, okay, she's going for the body kick. Nope, she throws it upstairs, swings like a baseball bat, and knocks Wei Li Zhang out. Someone as tough as Wei Li Zhang, how good must that kick have been? And, you know, like Hunter said, history made, first ever women's fighter to regain her belt after losing it. And I'm very happy for Rose Namajunas. You know, she's such a good human being and she's such an unbelievable example as a fighter too. And I'm really happy to see her back where she belongs. Rose Namajunas, massive congratulations.
How amazing was that moment? Like that's one of those moments you look at and you're just like, you just have to sit back and be like, okay, I'm witnessing history right here.
Yeah.
I couldn't even react to it. I saw it happen. I picked Zhang Weili too, but like I wasn't going against Rose Namajunas. That's just one of those fights where I'm just like, okay, let's see what happens. I'm excited. I thought Zhang was going to catch her, honestly, just like Keelan did. I thought she was going to close the distance off of a head kick or something and then land a couple hooks and drop her. Man, I couldn't believe it. She stepped in, landed the head kick, and I didn't even see the head kick coming, to be honest. I saw her step in, but I thought she was going in for like a couple punches, body punches or something. I didn't even think she was setting up the head kick, or even a leg kick, but she landed it, and I'll like yell or something at like something that's crazy that happened, like the Usman fight or whatever. I'm just like, oh, that's crazy. I was just like I just had my mouth open, jaw dropped, just speechless, literally speechless whenever I saw it happen. She finished it, and I just like sat back and I was just like, wow, that was incredible. I couldn't believe what I just watched. I really didn't think she was going to win it, especially going into it. I mean, she was saying like, I'm the best in the warm up and everything. And now looking back on it, I'm like, okay, that's so hype and everything. That's amazing mentally. Going into it though, I'm like, ooh, I saw it as like a confirming, oh, I'm the best, I can do this, I'm the best, I can do this, which I don't think that's a good sign going into a title fight. But man, I was wrong. It was incredible. She did that, and obviously the tears, the emotion after, all of the work that she and her team put in to get the belt back over someone as tough as Zhang Weili. When have we ever seen Zhang Weili in the smallest amount of trouble before? Never. I mean, the Joanna fight, they were trading the entire time, but she never really was rocked. head kick lands perfect. I'd argue Holly Holm still has that number 1 spot against Ronda Rousey just from pure shock value. I'd say this is my number 2 women's knockout of all
Yeah.
time. Of all time.
It's definitely
It was just amazing. The moment after, it's just something that will live on forever in the sport of MMA. And that's another one. Hunter and I were talking about 217, UFC 217 before we came on. That was when she won against Joanna the first time. This is another card in comparison to that. And it's just like, this is a moment that people will never forget. I certainly will never forget. And Rose Namajunas has just put another thing on her name on it. And just there's so many exciting fights to make now. And I don't think she's going to go up to 125. I don't think she should. I think there's a lot of fights that can be made at 115, a Zhang rematch or a bunch of other contenders coming up. And also, I don't think she wants to fight Valentina, to be honest. They were kind of hugging afterwards, and it's just like, yeah, we respect each other. We're not going to fight each other. So I just loved it. Everything about it was amazing. The moment was spectacular, and it was just. I don't even know. It was a perfect co-main event. There's no words to describe how amazing that moment was, and everybody knew that was just a moment that will live on forever.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I feel like we might have slept on Rose in this fight because we were coming off of Weili fever after the 5-round Joanna fight, but we failed to remember that Joanna was knocked out by Rose. Like this is a phenomenal fighter right here we're talking about. And I'm just so happy she's back as champion. I didn't realize how much I wanted her as champion. Now that she's back, You know, I don't think she'll move up either. I think maybe very far down in the career, maybe she can move up as soon as she cleans out the strawweight division. But that might not be happening because, you know, the Weili rematch is around the corner. She just ended Weili's 21 fight win streak, I believe, or 20 fight win streak.
Something like that, yeah.
It's crazy. And I don't see the second fight going like this either. I feel like it's going to be a lot closer. I think it's going to go to the ground for a little bit. And now I can't wait for that. You know, like remember the Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno fight, and I just can't wait for the rematch for them. That's how I feel about the Rose Namajunas Zhang Weili fight. I just can't wait for the rematch now. There's so many fights I'm so excited for, and it is a great time to be an MMA fan.
I just want to be clear. I did not sleep on Rose. I resent that accusation.
All right.
Fair enough.
All right, less of it. No, it was a really hard pick to make. It really was, but I do think Hunter's absolutely right. A lot of the decision was, of course, influenced by the Joanna fight, and I think people were fully justified in using that. We know how great Joanna is and how good she has been. That being said, I do think a lot of people forgot about how good Rose was against Joanna, who then, of course, went in against Weili Zhang. So I gotta admit, I kind of forgot how happy I was to see Rose as champion again, too. I think she's such a good role model and such a great image for women's fighting as well. I think that's a big part of it, too. And plus, she's proven that no matter how far you've fallen, you can always come back up again. And with the right people around you, there is no limits to what you can do. It's actually interesting, that point about the I'm the best as Bruce Buffer was introducing her. Whenever I heard that, it almost brought me back to Muhammad Ali technique. And you'd almost hear him say it throughout his fights and before his fights. You know, he'd sort of taunt his opponent saying, I'm the best. And he'd say it in his corner too. And I think it may well be where she got her motivation from. But as long as she believes it, shout out Luke Rockhold. And there's no limits to what she can do in this division. There's really not. I'm so psyched for a second Weili fight though.
Yeah, that's a very interesting prospect. And I do think that's a fight you kind of have to make because there's a lot of matchups that have to take place. And Weili was a dominant champion for the short reign that she did have. And I still think she's the second best fighter in that division at the moment. Yeah, that's a very interesting fight. I honestly don't know because I didn't see that fight going that way at all. I honestly don't know that. I'd have to take some time to process that. But that was the co-main event. And then living up to that was the main event where Kamaru Usman made a statement. Hunter, what did you make on this main event?
Oh, I was heartbroken. I wanted to see Masvidal win so bad. But now I'm an Usman fan. That was an insane knockout. I mean, this fight already looked closer than the first fight coming into the second round. We saw Kamaru Usman definitely take down Jorge Masvidal, but Jorge Masvidal got up pretty fast. And then he was able to trade some strikes back and forth, and it was a close fight. Like, am I crazy saying that? It was a close fight. And then come the second round, boom, he was hit with that one punch knockout. Holy moly. Everyone was going crazy at my house when we were watching that fight. Oh my gosh, it was I didn't see it coming. I don't think anyone else saw it coming, but it was a statement, that's for sure. No one's messing with Kamaru Usman right now. Like we take a look at the Mount Rushmore, like we were talking about last week. He is definitely making his way to the top right now.
Oh yeah.
He's fighting the best of the best, and he is making them look like they're B-rated fighters. He's knocking people out, he's breaking jaws, and he's taking names, and he's taking a lot of money. I think come 2022, when he's when they confirm that they're going to Africa, it's going to be even better to watch him fight there, and he's going to have a bunch of fans around him because we didn't see a whole lot of fans around him in Jacksonville because it's Jorge Masvidal's territory. But I just want to see a crowd cheer for Usman. I felt so bad when he was walking. I'm like, he has worked his butt off for this. He needs that recognition, and he keeps saying it every time he's in the octagon. Y'all better not sleep on me. I'm the best. I'm the champion. This and that, and it's hard to dispute that nowadays. I mean, who really stands a chance against this guy? I mean, there's an argument to be made against Colby Covington again because they had a close first fight, or even Stephen One Boy Thompson. But even now, I'm questioning myself. Like, I think Usman has what it takes to stay champion for a very long time.
Dear Lord in heaven, what a main event. This was mind-blowingly good. Kamaru Usman was right. He did everything he said he was going to do. First of all, 10-7 in the press conference beforehand. You're the first guy I'm about to lap. What a line, Kamaru. First of all, insane. In terms of the actual fight, I actually had Masvidal winning the first round. I thought it was really close, but I know Kamaru got the takedown, but Jorge Masvidal was doing more work on the ground. He was doing a lot of damage with the elbows and the punches in the full guard. So Masvidal came in ready to fight, and he did look good. Unfortunately, Masvidal's undoing for me was his taunting. Because if you look about 10 seconds before that Nigerian sledgehammer comes flying through the defense, Masvidal's laughing at him and he's got his hands down. And those are two things you never do in a fight. I mean, what are you thinking at that point? Yeah, he had his hands down. He took one right hook and laughed at Kamaru and had his hands down. So he obviously wasn't fully focused and he just never saw that punch coming. In fact, he still hasn't seen that punch coming. It was landed that well. In terms of a little bit of technical analysis, this is really where Trevor Whitman's genius comes into play. Because if you see Kamaru Usman's orthodox stance in the replay, you'll see Kamaru parry Masvidal's left hand out of the way. And that's when the right hand comes through flush onto the jaw and you see the water fly from Masvidal's face. That's how hard he hit him. If we have a Kamaru Usman who we thought was great before who had no hands, how dangerous is a Kamaru Usman that can throw hands with anyone in the division now? I mean, at this point, I really, really would not want to be a 170 fighter because Kamaru Usman looks like he has no intention of slowing down.
Wow, I was so impressed. I knew before this fight was going on, the entire card was amazing and hyped up to the point where I knew this fight was going to deliver because the fans were there. I mean, it was just so exciting and everything was going on. The card was crazy up to that point. I knew the main event was going to deliver, and it really did. It was a very fun fight. Keelan, you mentioned you realized in the first 20 seconds of the Shevchenko fight, Shevchenko was going to win. I realized in the first 20 seconds that this fight that Usman was going to win. I had a very strong feeling about it. Masvidal was fighting with his hands very, very low, and which is something that did play into the first fight. Now his cardio wasn't there and everything, and he was able to counter. But Usman, every single time you see him fight, leaps, bounds, and gets so much better into every time he fights. So whenever I saw his hands down, he was eating some shots early in that round as well before the first takedown. He was eating some 1-2 shots, which is ultimately what knocked him out. And he was brushing him off. He was doing fine because he can move his head and everything, but his hands were still down. And the minute he puts his hands up, he gets taken down. As soon as that happened, I was like, okay, I favor Usman heavy in this matchup because I'm not really sure what Masvidal has to offer. On the feet, he can't get too overzealous or else he'll get taken down. And I mean, he's been eating shots left and right. Now, I didn't think Usman would be able to land one that would knock him out cold. I did not think that was possible against Jorge Masvidal. But man, I thought Kamaru Usman was just going to batter him for 5 rounds and just kind of take him where he wanted to. But come that second round, I agree with you guys. I had the first round Masvidal as well. I had him edged out because of on the ground, he did do more damage, even though Kamaru Usman was on top. The elbows and on the feet, he landed more as well. Come the second round, you guys nailed it. He was taunting, he was laughing, he was moving his head around and everything, getting too comfortable. Hands down, 1-2, and that knockout is as beautiful as you will ever see. He had water all in his face and everything. The picture is something that you see in any like classic sports movie or photo or anything. Just the head like this, and then water and everything going all around it. Just the perfect photo. And his head, he was knocked out so hard, his head hit against Kamaru's shoulder, and he face planted. Never been done against anyone close to Jorge Masvidal. Obviously, Darren Till dropped him, but it wasn't like he was going to be knocked out cold. This was amazing. It was a perfect performance from Kamaru Usman. And how come he gets better? How can someone get better as a champion? So much better every single time he fights. It makes no sense. And I'm going to go out here and say it. Trevor Whitman is this close to being in the Mount Rushmore of coaches that we were talking about. That's something we can discuss later. But just what he's done with his, just we saw with Rose and how she fought and everything. And then Kamaru Usman, which is even more impressive, a guy who had virtually no hands going from Henry's hoof to Trevor Whitman, who, by the way, the other guy is a very good coach as well on the feet as well. But Trevor Whitman is just a whole nother level. I mean, the 1-2s were there all night. Like Keelan said, the sophistication of blocking and then countering and everything, and the power, the technique, and everything is there. Usman is turning into a legit threat on the feet. His takedown now is able to be not just a primary attack, but now a secondary attack to the hands against a guy like Jorge Masvidal, who you should be terrified of on the feet, like he was in the first fight. Now, granted, there was a lot of stuff going into it, 6 days notice, but he did not want to stand with Jorge Masvidal and was getting caught big, especially in that first and towards the end of the 5th round as well. Nothing like that in this fight. It was at least even on the stand-up, and Kamaru had the takedown advantage. That guy is the scariest dude I've seen in a long time. And like you guys said, 170, I don't know if anyone could challenge him at this point. He's on his way to becoming one of the best to ever do it at that division. I mean, that performance last night or Saturday night was just, I can't get over it. It was so perfect. Trevor Whitman, amazing game plan. Kamaru Usman, perfect execution.
Yeah, no, I agree. It looked like a shot from Raging Bull, that knockout.
Yeah,
you know? It was crazy. Lights were flashing, and the sweat just came. It was out of a movie or something like that. But yeah, I mean, this was Masvidal's 50th career fight, and under those 49, never been knocked out. So when someone knocks him out in a fashion like that, where he comes out cold, it's not just a TKO, it's a knockout. You know this guy is special. I mean. And in the taunting and the showboating, I see why I get it. Like, he's never been knocked out, so he's never had to be scared of getting knocked out. I mean, even after he got knocked down by Darren Till, you saw him smiling on the ground, and you saw him basically just taunting his way through it. And when he gets hurt by Nate Diaz, he hugs him and he smiles and he kisses the camera, like he knows this is just a show. When he's going against Kamaru Usman, it is no longer a show. You are fighting for your life, and you are fighting for everything. Kamaru Usman is a beast, and he is going to stay as champion for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I love that summary. I really, really do. You are fighting for your soul when you fight Kamaru Usman. Jack, there's just one small point that I do have to kind of disagree with.
Okay.
Kamaru Usman is not evolving into a threat in the feet. He is a threat on the feet.
Yeah.
And a really, really dangerous one at that too. And if I was Colby Covington, I'd have been sweating bricks on Saturday night. And for a couple of good reasons too. Not only does Covington now have to throw with power, which he never has before, but Kamaru Usman's already broken his jaw once, and his boxing technique was nothing close to what it is now. If he lands that punch in Covington the way he landed it in Masvidal, that flush, I think he'll break his jaw again.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. He is already a dominant striker on the feet and can match anybody. I agree with you. Colby Covington he looks amazing every single time we see him fight, but I don't think he's evolved to the point where he is at where Kamaru Usman is right now. I don't think he can match how much Kamaru Usman has grown. I don't think Colby Covington can say he's grown as much. Obviously, we'll get to see whenever they fight again. But man, he looked amazing, and you were absolutely right to say that. He is a dominant threat on the feet. He knocked out Jorge Masvidal. He knocked out Gilbert Burns. He is a threat on the feet, one of the best strikers now at 170, and you can say that legitimately. You have proof to back it up. You're absolutely right about that. Speaking of Kamaru Usman, and Hunter hinted on this before, UFC Africa is all but confirmed for 2022. Should be an amazing event. Hunter, what do you think about this?
I just hope they can get another 3 title fights on this card,
Yeah.
but have it Francis Ngannou, Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, and I want them against their toughest opponents yet. I want to see this card blow up. I want to see champions having a hard time, and I want to see champions pulling through, and I want to see fans from Africa go crazy. We haven't been able to see fans from Africa in the arena before. I feel like it's going to be absolutely insane, and I don't know what the card's going to look like, and we don't really know exactly who's going to headline it. But Kamaru Usman definitely has a shot. I think he should be the headliner. I mean, for right now, I feel like he is. He can. We haven't seen John Jones in the octagon for a long time, so excluding John Jones, he's the pound for pound champion right now. I mean, it's insane, and I think he is the first born African champion. Correct? It's not Izzy. I think Izzy came like a year after him, or
Yeah.
6 months after. But yeah, he's the first one, so I feel like he should be headlining the event. It would be perfect. There's not much else to say. We don't know who's going to be fighting in the card, and it's very long in the future. We still got all of 2021 to go through, but yeah, it's going to be fun.
Man, I can promise you this much with what little we know already. If UFC Africa happens in 2022, it is going to be on a par with South Africa 2010 World Cup. And that was
Yep.
one of the best events I've ever seen in my life, sporting wise. This will be on par with it. And I think it's such a clever move by Dana. I know they were planning on doing it at some point anyway, but events have fallen perfectly now for the UFC. You've got three of the best champions in three of the toughest divisions, and they're all African. You have Cameroon, Francis Ngannou, and now you have Nigeria and Adesanya and Usman. And I'll tell you one other fighter I'd love to see in that card, Jairzinho Rosenstruik,
Oh yeah.
representing
Oh yeah.
Suriname. I mean, imagine the fights you can put on that card. Again, I'm not saying these will happen, but if they do, I'll probably end up taking credit for them, but they probably won't. Imagine if you had Ngannou Jones, UFC Africa, you had Usman Covington, and then you had Adesanya Bobby Knuckles. How incredible would that be?
That'd be perfect.
Your
Perfect.
first ever card on the continent of Africa, and you've three of the best title fights in the last 10 years. It would almost be what Anderson Silva, Demian Maia was meant to be to Abu Dhabi. That's how good it would be. Fantastic decision, and there's always a crazy abundance of talent to uncover in Africa as well. I mean, we've already found three fantastic diamonds from that continent. How many more must there be?
Right, and if I could interrupt here, this
Yeah,
would be the 25th country where the UFC has hosted it. It'd be an absolute. This would be a quarter of 100, and it'd be a great way to advertise this. The 25th country. I think they have 71 fighters from different countries on the roster, and it's going to be something special when we see it.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm already excited about this. I love the 2010 World Cup comparison. It would be like that, just an event. Everyone would be talking about. Everyone would have to be talking about it. My guy Francis Ngannou would have to headline though, no matter what. It doesn't
Bring
matter
back the
what the fight is.
Vuvuzela.
Yes, I would love that. It would be amazing. Imagine how loud the arena would be. They would have to do a stadium. They would have to do a stadium. You couldn't do an arena with that. They'd have to sell out a stadium. But anyways, that's besides that. Yeah, Francis Ngannou would have to headline baddest man on the planet. I don't see him losing his title before 2022. I guess I could be wrong, but you never know. Doesn't matter who he's fighting. Francis Ngannou has to headline the baddest man on the planet, the biggest guy, hardest hitting puncher on the planet. Kamaru Usman co-headliner, Israel Adesanya on there as well. I'm so excited. I'm already excited for this. It would just be such an event, and you guys already touched on so much, so I won't already add to that. But what I will say is this: every single event where they go overseas to another country. Obviously, I don't know if they would do it in Nigeria or maybe even Cameroon. I know those are located like right below each other. They could do it in between, which would be a pretty fun event, or somewhere. They'd have to do it somewhere in Nigeria, right? Because anyway, I'm losing my mind. But wherever they do decide to do it, you get on the prelims, you would get so much more opportunities for local fighters to make a name for themselves, because every single UFC card, there's at least one. Most of the early prelims and some of the first prelims are guys from that local area that have got a UFC shot to get their names on there because of the local event, especially when they're going overseas. Obviously, we saw it in whenever they went to Abu Dhabi recently on Fight Island. We got to see a lot of guys from like Morocco, a lot of guys from that area. if they did in Africa, especially Nigeria in that area or wherever in Africa, you get to see a lot of those young African talents get on that card and make a name for themselves, which is another thing that the UFC would love. There's bound to be more Francis Ngannou's, more Kamaru Usman's, more Israel Adesanya's out there. They just need to make a name for themselves, get the proper camp behind them, and they could really make a star for themselves. So I think UFC Africa would do a great job advertising those fighters as well on the early card. And just how big of an event would that be? It'd be the craziest thing ever, literally World Cup level. Not obviously not views wise, but just excitement wise and everything. So I am all for it, and it needs to happen. I mean, it needs to happen. We have three African champions right now, all three looking very dominant. And I'm looking forward to it already. It's gonna be amazing. So speaking of anticipating things coming forward, Nick Diaz was in attendance for UFC 261. It was amazing because it showed Jake Paul and it was all boos and F Jake Paul chants, and then immediately it switches to Nick Diaz and everybody loses their minds. It was the greatest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen a crowd switch from absolute boos to absolute cheers that quickly before. It was amazing. Anyways, rumors have been surfacing. Dana White's open to it. A return for Nick Diaz. Hunter, what do you make of that?
Yeah, no. As soon as we watched the press conference after Dana White was asked the question, we saw Nick Diaz in the attendance. Is there going to be a return for Nick Diaz? And Dana White says yes. Nick Diaz wants a fight. He's probably going to get a fight here soon. And the interviewer Shmo, he asked, is Khamzat Chimaev a crazy name to throw out there against Nick Diaz? And Dana White says, no, that is not crazy at all. So, I mean, I think anything we see from Nick Diaz is going to be absolutely fantastic to watch. We haven't seen in the octagon in, I think, 6 years, 2015, ever since he fought Anderson Silva. And, I just can't wait to see this happen. I mean, Nick Diaz is such a staple in UFC history. He has such amazing fights. He's fought the best. He's come up short a few times, but this could be his turning point right here, just like with Nate Diaz coming up, fighting the number 3 ranked welterweight. There are so many opportunities for these Diaz brothers, and I just can't wait to see what they choose to do.
Stockton 209 reunited in the house at 170 in UFC. You love to see it. I'm really happy that Nick Diaz is coming back. I'm not going to lie to anybody. One other reason I'm really happy he's coming back is that there's a reason I know this isn't just a gimmick. Have you seen the shape Nick Diaz is
I was
in?
supposed to say, yeah.
He
crazy.
is crazy ripped. Like he is, I think in terms of his physique, it's the best I've ever seen Nick Diaz look. I mean, maybe back to like his Strikeforce days even. He looks so good. And I'm delighted that he's coming back. I really, really am. As Hunter said, Dana was asked, is Nick coming back? We now know he is. Would I throw him in against Khamzat Chimaev? I don't know. I mean, Chimaev, prior to retiring, his rank was very deceptive anyway. I mean, realistically, he was more in 11, 12 instead of being 15. So I would be more tempted to throw Nick in against an unranked fighter, get some warm up, get some octagon time back again. But if he wins that fight, why not Chimaev? That's a fight I'd love to see, actually, because, one characteristic of the Diaz brothers, whether they win, they lose, or they draw, they will always stand up and fight the best, and they will never take a step backwards. So Nick Diaz is primetime box entertainment, and especially with what we've seen Nate do since he's been away, that's one Diaz brother. Are you sure you're ready for 2 again? I mean, I know I am, and I can't wait to see what Nick Diaz does when he's back, and I'm all here for it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. Anytime a Diaz brother fights, it's a spectacle. And obviously, I thought we had seen the last of Nick Diaz after the Anderson Silva fight. That was such a weird fight. But he looks amazing. He looks like he is seriously ready to go. There's always been rumors of Nick Diaz returning, and they've always been just rumors. You never really thought too much about him, but seeing him, what he looks like, and him working out and everything, he is legit. You can tell he's taking this seriously, and he's going to come back. The way he looks, the way he's taking this seriously, attending the event, talking to Dana White basically confirming it, he's going to come back, and I'm so excited. Chimaev is a fascinating fight. Now, Keelan, I do agree with you. Yeah, an unranked opponent would make sense, but they're not. They can't do that. You want the money with Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is the money. You're gonna have to put him against the name. Chimaev is the name. People know Chimaev, even though he's basically unranked. Even though I agree with you, he is a phenomenal fighter. He's basically unranked, but he is a name, and people know that name. And Chimaev's been looking for a fight. And stylistically, that'll be a fantastic fight as well because Chimaev has great grappling, but obviously we know Diaz, his base, jiu-jitsu, amazing. His boxing is fantastic as well. Chimaev on the stand-up. Just it would literally be an old school versus new school fight. It would just be amazing. And Nick Diaz brings the chaos every single time he fights Chimaev. We've just seen him walking through people. I would love it. Really, anybody Nick Diaz fights, I know we'll all be watching. Anytime Nick Diaz fights, it's the same thing. So I'm excited, and I think that would be a great fight to see. Just really, Nick Diaz, it's an amazing return. It's going to be amazing. I do think he's coming back, and we'll all get to see something. I don't know exactly who he's going to fight. I'd love to see that Chimaev fight, but man, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm excited. It's something I didn't really think was possible, but obviously all the fans are excited, and it's going to be a great event whenever he does decide to come back.
Yeah, Keelan, I might have to disagree as well here. I don't think he'll fight an unranked fighter. I mean, his last two fighters were against two of the greatest champions of all time, George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva. Though he did come out losing to George St. Pierre, and I think turned out to be a draw against Anderson Silva. He deserves a ranked fighter just because of his name alone. I mean, they gave Nate Diaz, Leon Edwards, the number 3 ranked fighter, and he is not even ranked himself. So they're going to give Nick Diaz a pretty high ranked fighter here too. I mean, high as in like in the top 15. And the only reason it comes out Chimaev is even in the 15 right now is because Tyron Woodley was cut, which I feel like we should talk about in a later podcast. I mean, this is going to be a crazy return here. Nick Diaz is just fascinating to watch, and it's funny to see this after about a decade after the Paul Daly fight, and we saw Paul Daly fight about 2 weeks ago again, and he looked fantastic, second round knockout, and now we're seeing the return of Nick Diaz. Everything's just falling perfectly into place. I said it just on the podcast today. I'm going to say it again. It's a fantastic time to be an MMA fan.
Oh, that I don't disagree with you on. Yeah, I mean, I can't question your logic, and I certainly don't argue with it. I mean, when's the UFC ever done anything that's made sense? I mean, come on, people. We know this is true. Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. I'd actually love to see Carlos Condit and Nick Diaz.
Ooh,
I want the 2013 throwback. That's what I want to see. And I think if he does anywhere near good against Condit, especially if he gets a stoppage, throw him to the Wolf Chimaev, and then you have a headliner for a fight night right there.
Oh, there's no way they would do a fight night with Nick Diaz. There's no way. That's a pay-per-view all day long. There's no way. I love that. I would love for a fight night for Nick Diaz, but there's no way. But now I'm not saying he would headline, but I'm just saying that he would be on a pay-per-view 10 times out of 10. But yeah, I love that idea. I didn't consider that. Carlos Condit would be a phenomenal choice for a fight. That's almost a unique situation because I wouldn't say a lot of people. I would say maybe if you did a Robbie Lawler, which would be a way throwback fight, which would be crazy to see. I would be down for that as well. I'd say those two exceptions right there who are, I guess Robbie Lawler is technically ranked. I think maybe he's not.
I think he's 15.
I think he might be.
He
15.
was 15. I think he's now. I think he's now 16.
So just off. Yeah.
Because Comzout's 15 now.
Yeah. So you could do. I would say Robbie Lawler or Carlos Condit would be amazing and just the ultimate throwback. It would take us into where we used to watch the UFC. It would be amazing. And then Hosmat. But yeah, either one of those. I didn't consider that. That's true. I'd say those are unique situations. Normally, I wouldn't say do that because it's not in the top 15. That's not going to sell a fight. But those would definitely be a must-watch fight. Let's go ahead and roll into the fan questions then. And the first one we already kind of hinted at. This one comes from our good friend Mace Martinez, former member of the podcast. Thanks for the question. He says, who can beat Kamaru Usman or at least even challenge Kamaru Usman?
Now, I might have the obvious answer here, but I feel like it's the only one that makes sense to me, and that is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. This is because of his ability to gauge distance. If he can stay out of Kamaru Usman's power shots, and he has one of the highest takedown defenses in UFC welterweight history right now, this would be a fantastic fight to watch, just stylistically and technicality. I mean, we have Trevor Whitman, like we've talked about before. I say one of the greatest MMA coaches of all time, maybe even the greatest right now. against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, whose dad is one of the best kickboxers ever, and is one of the greatest coaches ever to coach kickboxing and karate and everything like that. This would be fantastic to see, because this is a fight where Stephen can stand a chance. Because we've seen in the past, these past few fights for Kamaru Usman, everyone's looking like they're getting knocked out crazy, and Wonderboy's been knocked out once off of crazy
Superman hook.
Superman jumping punch by
Go
Anthony
time.
Pettis,
Yeah.
which I don't think anyone could have even saw coming. But I mean, this is Anthony Pettis we're talking about here. But Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, the ability to gauge distance, he can lure Usman in for maybe a few power strikes and then head movement around and maybe counter him and catch him on the way in. I mean, that's the only thing I could see happening for him to beat Usman, because Usman right now is looking like freaking Jesus of the welterweight division. I don't know. We were talking about street Jesus, but this is regular Jesus. This is African Jesus. This is crazy. He's on a whole other level. He's the Nigerian nightmare. He's insane. So I say the only person maybe is Stephen Thompson.
Man, how have we gotten to talking about Nigerian Jesus? What's going on here? This is some blasphemy going on up in here.
Man.
No, Mace, thank you for the question, brother. Much love as always. Yeah, very good question. I think the NMF has probably got the best chance stylistically. There's two options here, basically. One of them is if you're comparing toe-to-toe wrestling style for style, and the other is actual nightmare style to compare. We know Wonder Boy stylistically is probably the toughest matchup in terms of getting to grips with. You know, we covered it the last couple of podcasts. I think Wonder Boy kind of speaks for himself in that regard. I do think Colby Covington still got a chance just because he does keep coming forward and he is as tough as anything. I mean, some of the shots he hit from Usman in the first fight were criminal. They were that powerful. Granted, not thrown with the same technique, but they were still thrown with the same power. So Covington absolutely has a chance. I don't see him keeping it on the feet in the second fight. I think he's felt the power from the first fight and he doesn't want none of it. At least if he has a brain, he certainly won't. So I see that fight being fought much more technically on the ground. But even then, how do you go against Kamaru Usman? He's so dominant on the ground. And even for 170, he's so physically massive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like look at his weigh-ins against any 170 fighter, and he's huge for 170. It's like I said in the last podcast or two, he's like two Melvin Manhoffs merged into one super Melvin Manhoff. He's that big, like some sort of Pokemon thing going on there. But yeah, I think Covington style for style, toe to toe is probably his toughest matchup. And then in terms of actually getting to grips with a different style, probably Wonder Boy, just because of those variety of kicks and punches and managing distance and potentially gassing Kamara out as well. You know, if he's able to land some teep kicks to the abdomen, you know, some leg kicks mixed in there, and like Hunter said, and he's absolutely right, very few judge distance better than Stephen Wonderboy Thompson does, and that's the key to so much of his success. He hits and he doesn't get hit, and he's really going to have to be able to do that against Kamaru Usman. But fantastic question, and only time will tell.
Yeah, I like that. I would preface this by saying I don't think anyone could beat Kamaru Usman off of what we just saw. I don't really see anybody being able to really actually take him over. I'm gonna go ahead and pick Stephen Thompson, and it's because I don't think that Colby Covington is necessarily a worse fighter than Stephen Thompson. I just think that stylistically, Kamaru Usman I think has Colby Covington's number. In the first fight, the way it went was their wrestling basically essentially canceled each other out, and it ended up just being a glorified stand-up fight. It was amazing. It was just a brawl pretty much. Now with the technique that Kamaru Usman has from Trevor Whitman, and he keeps improving every single fight, he's going to be better the next time we see him, presumably against Colby Covington. His stand-up is going to be so much better, and I think the wrestling still cancels each other out. I don't give Colby Covington the advantage in the wrestling. I think it's at least even. And then you have Kamaru Usman's stand-up, which I still think is better than Colby Covington's. Now, Colby Covington will have the slight cardio advantage and volume advantage, but the technique and power will overpower just the pure volume. And like it did in the first fight. but now he has technique behind it. He was just throwing sheer Kamaru Usman power. Now he has technique behind that power. So I give him a huge advantage over Colby Covington just because I think they match up even in the grappling department. And I think his striking is so much better than Colby Covington. I could be wrong, but based off what we see, I don't think I am. Now you go into Stephen Thompson, the way he manages range and everything. Kamaru Usman might have amazing hands. However, the problem is he's going to have to get in there. And that's the guy you cannot stand up against. Even if you've knocked out a million guys, that's the guy that if you have a wrestling base, you don't want to stand up against, because when you're up there, you don't realize this. He's one of those guys you'll get going against, and it's the third round. You don't even realize the fight started because he's just picking you apart. The pace of the fight's weird. You can't touch him. He's going to need to mix some grappling in there and then fight off the clinch and stuff, close the distance, which is a bit trickier than against Colby Covington, where they would mostly just be standing up and brawling like the first fight. So I think I go Stephen Thompson, but I also say that Kamaru Usman's on another level right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. But let me throw in a few different things. I know we're talking about welterweights here, but what if we see a few lightweights move up and try to challenge Kamaru Usman? I mean, a year ago, I would have said Khabib Nurmagomedov, no question. But now I'm thinking to myself, I don't think Khabib has the striking capability to stand with Kamaru Usman. And when it comes to wrestling, I think Khabib definitely has, or not definitely, but I think he has a slight edge in it. But I think Usman is well versed enough to not get finished by Khabib on the ground, and he can probably keep it on the feet. And let me throw another question out here. What about Dustin Poirier? He cuts a lot of weight to be down at lightweight right now. So if he were to go up to welterweight, I think he would put on a showcase. I mean, he has fantastic striking ability. He has knockout power that we've seen. He has great leg kicks, and he's got a wicked guillotine. This would be a fantastic fight to see, and not just welterweights, but lightweights here might be the trick to beat Kamaru Usman. Who knows? Or maybe even a middleweight going down. What if we see Robert Whittaker go back down to welterweight? There's a few different things we can look at here, but when it comes to welterweights, it's looking dry. He's beaten almost everyone here except Stephen Thompson. That's why my pick was Stephen Thompson, but there's a few other people I would consider.
With the greatest of respect, I have to disagree with Dustin Poirier. I think he'd get absolutely ripped alive. He's already fighting welterweights that he's much bigger than. What's he gonna do to a lightweight that's going up? I fully agree with everything you've said in Poirier's stand-up. He's probably the best boxer lightweight right now. But I just think if he gets on the ground, he's not getting back up again. And I think as well, as we have said, the equation carries. Power does go up in proportion to weight. The problem is with Dustin going up, chin doesn't. And his chin is going to be dealing with an atom bombs worth of power in Kamaru Usman. And if he takes one punch, he's going out. Because we saw what he did to the toughest guy at 170. What's he going to do to a 155er?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think Khabib is an interesting conversation. I mean, every single time you could count out Khabib, I would never do it just because we've never seen him lose. We've never seen him struggle before. Michael Johnson had him a little bit rocked, but look what he did to him in the rest of that fight. It's just, I would never count out Khabib. It would be a fantastic fight, but I just think even though Kamaru's wrestling is the best that we've seen in a long time, Khabib's wrestling is like we've never seen before. It's not even wrestling. It's just pure grappling. It's pure everything. It's not just one thing. It's a mixture. It's the perfect MMA style to get someone to the ground. So I don't necessarily give him an advantage, but I say Khabib, if he was still fighting active, I wouldn't have betted against him in that Usman fight. Poirier is a different conversation. And I do agree with what Keelan said mostly. I think his stand-up, his technique and everything would translate, but just you're dealing with a whole other level of fighters. You're dealing with monsters at 170. You're dealing with guys that are just going to be physically stronger than you, and you're cutting less weight. But think about how much weight they're cutting to get down to 170. It's the weight that you're cutting down to get 155. So you're going to be the smaller guy in there. You're going to be having the strength disadvantage and the wrestling department as well. Dustin Poirier's got phenomenal grappling and is able to defend almost anybody's takedown. But Kamaru Usman mixing it all in there. And just being used to fighting that weight class, I don't think Poirier would have a great shot. Now, what I did like you saying, though, and not necessarily if he moved down, I don't think that would be a smart decision. But if Kamaru Usman decided to move up, I think Robert Whittaker would be a fascinating fight because on the feet, that's another one of those guys who can really hurt you, and it's really hard to match on the feet. And we've seen how good his wrestling is. But I don't think Kamaru Usman would want to move up to middleweight anytime soon because of the same reasons. I don't think Dustin Poirier will want to move up to 170 anytime soon. So I think Kamaru Usman's in that perfect spot, and I think he's just going to keep collecting bodies at 170.
Yeah, just real quick, Kamaru Usman has also said as long as Adesanya is champion,
Right.
he's not
That's true.
moving up.
That's true.
And, I fully respect that. But if Adesanya wasn't champion, he's absolutely going for champ status, and there is no question. This is just my final point, real quick, because I don't think it's entirely relevant, but it's still been out there. Conor McGregor, of course he has. He's been in a Twitter spat with Kamaru. I just want to say if that fight ever happened, Conor's not walking out in his own feet.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If Dustin Poirier was going to have a hard shot, a hard time against Kamaru Usman, which he would, but Dustin Poirier would put up a fight at least. He would land a couple of punches at least. Conor would get just, I don't even know what would happen to him. It would be embarrassing, especially now. I know he was calling out Kamaru Usman a couple of years ago or last year or something. This is a whole other Kamaru Usman. Conor would have lost that fight terribly, but now no chance. Moving on to our next question. Thank you again, Mace, for that. Let's go ahead and say who's next for Jorge Masvidal, the other end of the spectrum of tonight's or Saturday's main event.
This is a great question, and I might stick with my same answer for the last question. I could say Stephen Thompson. I mean, we've seen them fight in the past. We've seen it was a pretty good fight here, and now that they're both top five ranked fighters, I think this could be a good matchup for both of them. I think Stephen Thompson will need a big name to get the type of title shot that he needs and wants so desperately. Jorge wants a bounce back fight, and I'm not saying that Stephen Thompson's any pushover whatsoever, but this could be a good name for him to also stay in that top five ranked division. So I know it's confirmed already for Stephen Thompson and Gilbert Burns, or at least verbally confirmed, but this could be a good matchup for Jorge, or even give him Vicente Luque. I like Vicente Luque as a option for Jorge Masvidal because, I mean, it's like the new up-and-comer. They haven't fought before, and this would be a fantastic fight to watch on the feet, standing up. They both strike very well, and they're both very fast, and they contain power that seems to come out of nowhere. So I'm fine with either of these matchups, but it's going to be hard for Jorge to bounce back. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love the Wonder Boy shout, actually. I really do. My only problem with the Wonder Boy shout is he's already cemented his title shot.
Yeah.
And frankly, the fact he has to fight another fight is wrong to me already. So even if that hadn't been confirmed, I still wouldn't have put Wonder Boy forward. But I am going to put two names forward. I'm going to put Colby Covington forward just because of their background. I know he will be next for the title, but it's a fight that I would love to see. And I think it's a fight that on many levels makes quite a lot of sense. My other fight that I would put forward is Nate Diaz and a rematch for the BMF belt. Now, I appreciate this is a bit of a left field option, but it was still a stunningly good fight.
Yeah.
And, pretty much universal wide mixed martial arts consensus that the fight was stopped early. I have my own opinions on that, but that's neither here nor there. Both guys said they would do it again. This might be the perfect time to do it again. Jorge's on a 2-fight skid already now, and Nate's got Leon Edwards. So if Nate loses to Leon, which with the absolute greatest of respect, I think he will, this might be the perfect bounce back fight for either of these guys.
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna go. I like Luque. That's gonna be my option number 2, and I also like the what Hunter said about Wonder Boy. But I'm gonna go with the loser of Burns versus Wonder Boy. I think Masvidal should face is my number 1 option. That's a big fight to determine who's next in line after Colby Covington, and I think the loser would fit in perfectly with where Masvidal is at right now. Obviously, you never know with welterweight because so much can change with the matchups that's going on and everything, so you really can't pinpoint it. But that's what I would say would probably be the perfect fit for him at the moment. I do like the Nate Diaz shout. I was thinking that as well. That's just so many circumstances and stuff. I can't even think about that. So for me, the easiest answer would be loser of Wonderboy Burns. And I also say that because I want to. We've all been talking about Stephen Wonderboy Thompson so much recently, especially with the welterweight podcast and him being next in line. We cannot count out Gilbert Burns and Wonderboy versus Burns. That's going to be a phenomenal fight. And it's going to be them going back and forth, and it's going to be very close. And a lot's going to be answered in that fight as well. So I don't want to say anybody watching, we are not counting out Gilbert Burns at all, which is why I'm not even making a pick for that fight. I'm just saying the loser, I think, should face probably Jorge Masvidal next is my little answer for this fan question. Yeah. All right, guys. So Let's go ahead and move on to the final question. And this one is a fascinating one. Moving on from the welterweight division onto the big guys, heavyweight. Can Stipe Miocic regain his heavyweight title?
That is a fantastic question, and I'm gonna hate my answer, but I don't think so. I think Ngannou is too powerful, and he's too hard of a striker to get past. And I feel like Stipe's wrestling is just not good enough to um to keep him on the ground like he did in the first fight between the two. I don't even think he can bounce back like into the top five after if he gets another fight in the top five. I don't think it'll be a rematch against Ngannou. I don't know if he'll win that fight either. Getting knocked out and getting knocked out by Ngannou seals your fate for a lot of fighters. You know, I think Stipe is a fantastic champion. He was a fantastic fighter. He's a fantastic person, but it's going to be very hard for him to bounce back. And even if he does get back to that picture to to Ngannou, it's going to be a very hard fight for him. And I just do not see it changing. How I don't see the outcome differing how it did in the second fight.
I respectfully disagree. I think he can.
Go.
And I am going to, as always, the mouth that's not from the south, but I am going to tell you why. First of all, Stipe made one or two big mistakes in the build up to that, second fight now. You know, massive weight discrepancy between him and Ngannou. What was he thinking? You know, I know he wanted to be faster and lighter around a smaller octagon, but he gave up most of his natural power and his weight when it came to takedowns and wrestling, and that just made no sense to begin with. Secondly, Stipe's not an arrogant guy, and he never takes anything for granted, much as he is right to do so. But I do think subconsciously he felt it would be too easy to take Ngannou down again and keep him there. And of course, as we saw, Ngannou's takedown defense is, terrifyingly good now. But the question still hasn't been answered of what Ngannou will do off his back because we haven't seen him there. And I still think the key for Stipe is just getting a trip and getting him on his back because it's one thing stopping a takedown. It's completely different getting off your back when you're down there. And we have seen that countless times in countless weight divisions. And one thing Stipe has proven consistently throughout his career after wins and losses is that he is incredibly intelligent and susceptible to adapting to his opponents and learning and downloading the information. Everybody thought Daniel Cormier exposed him. What did he do? He went out and won again. And what we must also remember about Stipe, gas tank. He has always had that fantastic gas tank. Yeah. And that's another question Ngannou still hasn't answered yet. I mean, again, I like Francis Ngannou a lot. I really do. I think he's a fantastic guy and he's more than earned where he is. I mean, everybody knows his life story at this point. But strictly on a fighting basis, I still think Stipe is more than good enough and more than intelligent enough to beat Francis Ngannou. He's been in there with him twice. He knows what to expect and he knows the adjustments to make.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man, I was actually leaning towards Hunter's side, but you made a very good case for that.
Thank you, law degree.
Yeah. I do think Stipe has all the tools, and I do think that I don't think he'll get an automatic title rematch. I think he'll fight someone else before him. He can put it on his Instagram too. It's time to bulk up. He says he's working the 250, so that is a good sign as well. He is bulking up, which I do think he needs to do. Oh, that's a good question. Although he has all the tools to do it, and I think he will get the trilogy fight, or at least whoever fights the champion again, I don't know if he can pull it out. I mean, Ngannou seems to be on that level. He caught him before. Even if Stipe gets him down and holds him down for a round, Ngannou is so much more patient now and everything, is so much of a different fighter. And Stipe's chin, I mean, he can take a shot. I mean, how many shots did he take from Ngannou in that first round? It was crazy. But just that's going to add up over time. And he does have all the tools. He does have all the fight IQ. But just Ngannou has that power. Ngannou has that X factor, and that will be a thing. Any fight Ngannou fights in is that X factor. And that's why I picked him to win the rematch, and that's why I would pick him again to win the trilogy. Even though I do think Stipe has all the tools in the world to win it, and I wouldn't be necessarily surprised if he did win it again, I just don't think it'll happen. I don't think it'll happen. I think Stipe's time as champion is unfortunately over. That is a great case, and he does have all the tools, and that's why you can never count Stipe out. He also has that he's still a fireman. He has that work ethic. He has that everything behind him. So don't count him out. He will get that title shot again. I do believe he'll get that title shot again. But I don't think he wins it. I don't think he wins it.
Yeah, this is no hit against Stipe. I think Stipe is a fantastic fighter, and his fight IQ is off the charts. I'd say it's probably the highest in the heavyweight division. I mean, he's had so much experience. I mean, he's the one who knocked out Fabricio Verdum. I mean, he's the one who's done everything in this weight division. He has the most consecutive title defenses for the heavyweight. He beat Daniel Cormier. I mean, this man is crazy, but I just think it's time for a new age, and that's for Ngannou's age. I mean, Ngannou is looking so good, and he's looking patient. He's looking like an absolute beast out there. And as many scenarios I run through my head about how this rematch could go or how the trilogy fight can go, I just don't see many of these options coming out for Stipe on top. Even if he puts on the weight, there he goes. He loses the speed, and he still won't have the same power to match Ngannou, I feel like. I mean, I don't see Stipe being able to finish Ngannou. Maybe wrestling, he might be able to finish him, but I don't see him being able to knock him out. I mean, Ngannou is just he's looking like a brick wall in my eyes right now, and I don't see many people being able to being able to be the sledgehammer that can knock down the wall.
I still think he can. I do. And, this isn't just me being loyal to the immigrant mentality or anything. I really think he can. I truly do. Again, as I have said in my first opening statement, I love Francis Ngannou a lot. I think he's an unbelievable fighter. And again, as I have said countless times, put it on a t-shirt. I'm going to be in a different continent if he ever has an argument with anybody, because I want nothing to do with that power. I don't care. I like you, Francis. I do. But I still think Stipe can get it done. And again, this is not a knock on Francis, but this is only the first fight we've seen of the new and improved Ngannou. Now, granted, it was against the champion, and granted, it was very impressive, but I want to see how long the patience and the longevity actually lasts, because eventually he is going to want to unleash that sledgehammer of a right hand, and that could be the timing where you get your takedowns. And one of the points I will make for Stipe as well is in that second fight, he made his takedowns very obvious too. Because Francis was being more patient, Stipe was more desperate to shoot in on the single and the double leg, and Francis could read it. If Stipe can mix those takedowns up and make them more unexpected again, all it takes is 1 or 2 takedowns to drain the gas tank. I still think that's a susceptible issue. I actually think Ngannou's team have been really clever here with what they've done. I think they've improved his takedown defense drastically because they know if he's down on the ground, his gas tank will be drained. And I think that's the weakness to exploit.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
Come on, Stipe.
Yeah,
prove me right.
I think he has all those. I think he can do it. I just don't think he will. I'm sticking by that. Hey, you made a great case, and I think a lot of people are on your side. But phenomenal podcast, guys. I think that'll do it for this one. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Please make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Listen to us everywhere, literally anywhere you can listen to a podcast. We are there, including iTunes and Spotify. Please make sure to follow us on Instagram, MMA.island, and check us out on our website, MMAisland.net. Again, thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Great podcast, guys.
Later, guys.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody.